Our history journey starts with the Brown and Holland family. They are both well-known families of Newport, Rhode Island. These names have been passed down throughout the generations, such as Bonnie Brown, who was named after her great-grandfather Edward Brown. Edward was riding past his maternal grandparents' home on his bicycle located on Lower Thames Street in Newport, Rhode Island, on his way home from work when he suffered a massive heart attack and died at the age of 31, leaving his wife and two young daughters to journey on in this world without him. Edward's widow, Bessie Holland, was remembered throughout the generations through Bethany Holland, who not only holds Bessie Holland's family name, but also the antique wooden hutch built by Bessie Holland's father, named Benjamin Holland, which she proudly displays in her home. Bessie Holland Brown's death was romanticized through a story told by her daughter, Bessie Holland Peterson, that has been passed down through the generations. The story is told that on New Year's Day, January 1st in 1924, Bessie Brown walked from her house, located on Bush Street in Newport, to Easton's Beach. She walked out into the water and kept right on walking to never return. Every New Year's Day, the Islanders will jump into the water to search for Bessie Brown. This generational path that we are heading down is to show you the connection to the King Philip's War and how our family played a huge part in it. This war is also known as the First Indian War. We started with Bessie Holland Brown and spoke a little bit about her father, Benjamin Holland, who married the beautiful Marie Marble, and they lived in Newport, Rhode Island. Benjamin was born to the handsome Henry Hooper Holland II of his given name, and his adoring mother Sarah Sally Torgee, who were both born in South Kingston, Rhode Island, and died in Newport, Rhode Island. Get your popcorn ready. This is where it gets very interesting. Let's begin with your great-grandfather and grandmother, who are Henry Hooper Holland's parents, because this is where exciting journey to the Indian War will begin. Henry Hooper Holland, the first of his name, married Sarah Tefft. They were both born and died in South Kingston, Rhode Island. Every year, the Tefft family, who are the descendants of our great-grandfather John Tefft of Portsmouth, Rhode Island, hold a family reunion in South Kingston. John Tefft is your great-grandfather, so please know you are always welcome to join us. We are heading down our great-grandmother's side of our family tree. Sarah Tefft's parents are Daniel Tefft and Sarah Gardner. They were both born and died in South Kingston, Rhode Island. When Sarah Tefft was born around 1773 in South Kingstown, Kings County, Rhode Island, British colonial America, her father, Daniel Tefft, a Revolutionary War soldier, was 31, and her mother, Sarah Gardner, was 25. She married Henry Hooper Holland in 1789 in South Kingstown, Washington County, Rhode Island. They had 6 sons and 1 daughter. She died on March 10, 1850, in South Kingstown, Washington County, Rhode Island, USA, at the age of 78, and was buried in the Henry Holland Cemetery lot in South Kingstown, Washington County, Rhode Island. Moving along in history, we are getting closer to the Indian War, when Revolutionary War soldier, her father, he is your great-grandfather, Daniel Tefft. Grandpa Daniel was born on May 1st, 1743, in South Kingstown, Kings County, Rhode Island, British colonial America. His father, Stephen Tefft, was 26 years old, and his mother, Amy Gardner, was 19. He married Sarah Gardner around 1741. Stephen Tefft was born on October 5th, 1716, in North Kingstown, Kings County, Rhode Island, British colonial America. His father, Samuel Tefft Jr., was 31 years old, and his mother, Abigail Tennant, was also 31. He married Amy Gardner on December 10th, 1741, in South Kingstown, Rhode Island. Moving along to his mother and father. When Samuel Tefft Jr. was born in 1685 in Kingstown, Kings Province, Rhode Island, British colonial America, his father, Samuel Tefft, was 42 years old, and his mother, Elizabeth Jenks, was 27. He married Abigail Tennant in 1710 in North Kingstown, Providence, Rhode Island, British colonial America. They had at least 5 sons and 1 daughter. He died on July 14, 1760, in South Kingstown, Kings Province, Rhode Island, British colonial America, at the age of 75, and was buried there. We are almost to great-grandpa John Tefft. We'll be talking about how he got his head chopped off very shortly. Last great-grandfather before John, I promise. We will quickly get him out of the way. When Samuel Tefft was born in 1643 in Providence, Rhode Island, British colonial America, his father, John Tefft, was 29 years old and his mother, Mary Magdalene Barber, was 25. He married Rhoda Cruff around 1671. He lived in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, in 1644. He died on December 20th, 1725. Here we go. Great-Grandpa John was beheaded by Indians January 1676 while trying to rescue his son. We know him as Great-Uncle Joshua. In January 1676, his son, Great-Uncle Joshua, had married a native girl, also known as an Indian. Josh had shot at the English colonials around 20 times, probably protect the natives, his wife and in-laws. He had been captured and executed in Rhode Island. But wait, there's more. We will go over how Great-Uncle Josh died. After we finish up with the story of how Great-Grandpa John lost his head, the books say that when Grandpa John went to get his son's body back to bury him, was attacked by natives, beheaded and left lying on the ground. So the end of his story was he had been beheaded on his way to retrieve his dead son's body. Here's the story of Great-Uncle Josh. Over 300 years ago, Great-Uncle Joshua Tefft, a resident of Kingstown in Narragansett Country, was executed for treason at Smith's Garrison House under the direction of Captain Richard Smith and Josiah Winslow, the governor of Plymouth Colony. Since no record of his trial has survived to this day, we must rely on contemporary accounts from those directly involved, as well as, to a lesser degree, the published histories of that time. The time was King Philip's War of 1675 to 76, when the colony of Rhode Island found itself the focus of hostilities, resulting from the United Colonies, Massachusetts Bay, Connecticut, Plymouth, failed policies in dealing with their Indian neighbors. After several attempts to annex southern Rhode Island were foiled, the United Colonies attempted to claim the territory, by right of conquest, by reducing the great Narragansett nation to submission. While the Tefft family had lived in peace next to their Narragansett neighbors for 14 years, all but Joshua retreated to the safety of Aquidneck Island at the impending approach of hostilities. What do we know about the celebrated Great-Uncle Joshua Tefft? Usually, our first knowledge of his existence comes from various accounts regarding his part in King Philip's War of 1675 to 76. Much myth surrounds many of these reports, and perhaps we will never know the exact truth. Even his birth date remains a mystery. We do know that Joshua was born in the early 1640s, or so, in either Rhode Island or Massachusetts to parents John and Mary Tefft. Little is known of Joshua's early life. While there are records for his uncle William in Boston dating to 1638, records for his father John do not appear until 1643 in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. From the documentary record, it is possible to conclude that Joshua's brother Samuel was born 1644 to 46. While there are no such records for Joshua, circumstantial evidence seems to indicate that he was the older of the two. The first extant record for Joshua is the birth of his son, Peter, in 1672. Joshua's wife Sarah, an Indian native, died just 2 days later after the birth of their son, most likely of childbed fever. Uncle Josh spoke Algonquin language. Peter Tefft, son of Joshua Tefft by Sarah his wife, was born ye 14th of March year 1672 in Warwick. Joshua and his brother Samuel are recorded in a 1674 census for Connecticut's disputed plantation of Wickford, the local seat of which was Richard Smith's fortified trading post in the present town of North Kingstown, Rhode Island. Joshua is also mentioned in his father's 1674 will. These documents are all we know of Joshua Tefft prior to King Philip's War. Certainly, there is nothing in these records to suggest the tragic fate that befell him at the height of the war. In December 1675, over 1,300 troops of the Puritan United Colonies converged in southern Rhode Island at Smith's Garrison, intending to take the territory by right of conquest. They attacked the Narragansett stronghold, located on an island in the Great Swamp, 2 miles from Joshua Tefft's farm. Tefft claimed that he had been taken captive by the Narragansett, his life spared only on the condition that he serve as their slave. However, an Indian woman taken captive by the English of the United Colonies reported that Joshua was their encourager and conductor. After the Great Swamp Fight of December 19, 1675, Captain Oliver of Massachusetts reported that Joshua Tefft had shot 20 times at us in the swamp. Records indicate that Joshua wounded Captain Nathaniel Seeley of Connecticut, who subsequently died. An Indian spy reported that Joshua did them good service and killed and wounded 5 or 6 English in that fight, and before they would trust him, he had killed a miller, an English man at Narragansett, and brought his scalp to them. Yet, Joshua claimed that himself had no arms at all at his interrogation recorded by Roger Williams in Providence. He was subsequently extradited to Wickford into the custody of General Josiah Winslow, governor of Plymouth, and Richard Smith on January 16, 1676. 2 days later at Smith's garrison, Joshua was executed for high treason, the only Englishman to suffer such a fate in all New England history. Major William Bradford of Plymouth wrote, "The Englishman that was taken had his doom yesterday, to be hanged and quartered, which was done effectually. A sorrowful record, indeed. Yet, what happened after Joshua Tefft's execution seems to suggest that he was not guilty of high treason, but merely of seeking to preserve his own life and property under duress." The Rhode Island government swiftly admonished the soldiers of the United Colonies as unwelcome intruders, but there was little else that they could do. After the war, the colonial government of Rhode Island took an almost solicitous posture towards the Tefft family. Joshua's brother, Samuel Tefft, and his brother-in-law, the future Governor Joseph Jenkins, became freemen of the colony in 1677. In 1681, Joshua's orphan son, Peter Tefft, was appointed 3 guardians: Jira Bull, Justice of the Peace of Pettaquamscut, the prominent John Green of Warwick, who later became Deputy Governor of Rhode Island, and Peter's uncle, Samuel Tefft. The guardianship order made it clear that Peter, a 9-year-old boy in 1681, was a landowner apparently having right to all the possessions of his father, even though Joshua was executed as a felon by Puritan authorities, and even though colonial law required a convicted trader's lands and goods to be forfeited. In the early 18th century, the Tefft family petitioned the Rhode Island General Assembly regarding their interest in the vacant Indian lands. Without a doubt, it must have been a most compelling argument. In 1709, 3 members of the Tefft family, Samuel Tefft, his oldest son John, and Joshua's orphan son, Peter, were among 26 individuals granted exclusive right to take part in the Shannock Purchase, which included much of the present town of Richmond, Rhode Island. Peter's father, Uncle Josh, was hanged, drawn, and quartered, the supreme punishment for high treason. Drawn and quartered is often popularly believed to be a torture that involved pulling a person's legs and arms in 4 directions by horses or on a rack. Viewers of the movie Braveheart know that it is an even more gruesome act. As set out in the Incorporation of Providence Plantations in 1647, the following provision details the process, presumed to have been used against Joshua Tefft at Smith's Castle. Frequently, the victim's body or head was publicly displayed as a warning to others. For high treason, if a man, he being accused by 2 lawful witnesses or accusers, shall be drawn upon a hurdle unto the place of execution, and there shall be hanged by the neck, cut down alive, his entrails and privy members cut from him and burned in his view, then shall his head be cut off and his body quartered, his lands and his goods all forfeited. It's devastating to know that Great-Uncle Josh had been found not guilty shortly after his execution, and Great-Grandpa John had been beheaded in his search for his son's remains. Thank you for watching, and for being a branch on my family tree. I encourage you to continue this historical family research, and hope it brings you as much joy as it did me. Blessed be the glory. Bye.